A very warm welcome to all the participants. I'm Dr. Preeti, member of Team IIC, that is Institutions Innovation Council. And we have a set of online webinars lined up so as to motivate all of y'all, our dear participants, so as to bring out the entrepreneur within you and to explore the opportunities that are offered. I request Ma'am Deepa Audi, who is the president of Team IIC, to brief you about what is IIC exactly and what is IIC of Dhempe College of Arts and Science, Miramar, Goa. So, in due course, our resource person, Dr. Ajinkya Naik, will be with us, and I request all the participants to keep your questions ready and to ask them in order to make our session more interactive. Okay, yeah, I hand over this session to Deepa Odi ma'am so as to brief us about IIC.
Respected Principal, Dr. Vrinda Borkar, Vice President of IIC, Dr. Manoj Ibrampurkar, the resource person for today's session, Dr. Ajinkya Naik, and my dear students. A very good afternoon to you all. The Institutions Innovation Council is an initiative of the Ministry of Education, Government of India to introduce the culture of innovation in higher education institutions all over the country. The primary motive of IIC is to encourage, motivate students and faculty to work with innovative ideas and transform them into prototypes and working models. IIC was constituted in Dhempe College in the year 2019. And since then, with a very efficient team of faculty members and students, we have held a lot many activities and achieved a 4-star rating from MHRD for the academic year 2019. We stand third in the state of Goa and 40th in the Western region zone. Under the aegis of IIC, we organize activities, sessions, competitions relating to entrepreneurship, product design, and innovative research. We also organize visits to incubation centers. I request all the students to participate in the activities which will be organized by the IIC in the coming semester. Thank you.
Thank you, Deepa ma'am, for a very clear introduction about IIC. And I now request Dr. Manoj Ibrampurkar, also a member of Team IIC, to brief us about our resource person for today. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Preeti. Dear students, most people prefer to walk the path carved by others, but there are some who refuse to follow others. They choose and create their own path. Today, we have with us one such person who practiced dentistry for 20 long years, had a well settled dental clinic of his own. But then he decided to follow his dream to become an entrepreneur. It is indeed a pleasure to welcome today's resource person, Dr. Ajinkya Naik, a dentist turned businessman. He is the founder of Project Alpha Safe, a healthcare based safety monitoring service, and co-founder of ikamika.xyz, a cosmetic dentistry image simulation service. Dr. Ajinkya is also an advisor for a medical inventory and patient CRM startup called medicoquest.com. He is also an excellent singer and has been certified by YouTube and Spotify with official artist channels. He is also a creative musician and has himself composed many songs. He's here with us today to guide us on how to plan for startup and the legal and ethical steps involved. Without taking much time, I once again welcome Dr. Ajinkya Naik and request him to deliver his talk.
My life. Hi everyone. First, uh, just a moment. Hello. Uh, yeah, I think so. Can you get a close? Okay. Visible? No. Now. Cool. Yeah, that is fine. Video is not coming. No? My audio. Yeah, video is on. But it's very visible. No, here.
But here you can see म्हणून तुझे दोन तुझ्या लॉगिन झाला
Hi,
ना good so you can click this
Correct. Here.
yeah on top here then that will be seen click this you know
I'll log out and come in again.
It is visible. No.
Students, please hold on. There is some technical glitch. We'll be back within a minute.
I should start. Where's your presentation? Okay. Hi, good morning, friends. First of all, I would like to thank all your teachers, Teacher Deepa, Teacher Preeti, and Teacher Manoj for having me here. It's great to be among all of you and to share some of my thoughts. So I would like this to be a two-way session wherein you can anytime in between into the session you can just ask whatever question you want so that you will remember that and I will be on cue to answer that at that point of time rather than it being a one-way street. Okay, so this thing called startup has been quite fashionable as of late, just like Bitcoin and other things. A lot of things are getting fashionable and it becomes a trend. So a startup has become the new trend in the last few years, and we keep on hearing about it all the time. Startups, unicorns. So coming to it, what is really a startup? So this is one of the most easy to understand and simple kind of definition that I found. So this is a guy called Neil Blumenthal, and he's co-founded a startup called BobbyParker.com. What this guy does is the company sells spectacles, specs, prescription glasses online, just like Lenskart does it in India. These guys do it in US and Canada. So he says that a startup is a company working to solve a problem where the solution is not obvious and success is not guaranteed. So this is one very important part where you differentiate a startup from a regular business. So startup is a company, any company. Primarily, it is working to solve a problem. So when you go to, you go to begin a startup, you have to first identify a problem. Is there a problem anywhere? Can you see that people have some need, or is that some niche, or is there something that people want to get done better? Or maybe there is a solution, it is not as good as it can be. You can improve the solution. If you can, then well, you can begin a startup. And one second thing is that success in a startup is not guaranteed. So that's it. So to break this down into what is a startup, what would be the key features of a startup, how are startups different from any other businesses, and what are the primary factors that are important for success in a startup, right? So, right, let's begin. So, there we have startup in a Superman like font because everybody thinks startups are like, flying up just like Superman. So, anyway, a startup is a company or project undertaken by an entrepreneur. What is a startup? Startup is just another company. It's a project taken by an entrepreneur to seek, develop, and validate a scalable economic model. So here is one key difference between a startup and any other business that you would have. For example, take a business like I'm wholesaling medicines, like pharmaceutical drugs. Okay, so I start a wholesale shop and I go and tell all the chemists that I'm a wholesaler, I have this brand of medicines available, and if you place an order, I will come and deliver it to you. So would this be a startup? No, this would not be a startup. This would be just a regular business. In the sense is that this business model is very well understood. All the finances that is required for this kind of business is understood. Uh, the entrepreneur who is starting this wholesale kind of business, he has an idea. He suppose in Goa, how many chemists are there, retail chemists are there, and how many people can he cater to? What is the requirement of this drug? Suppose maybe medicine for cold medicine. Let's take as cold medicine. Uh, when is cold medicine most probably going to sell out faster? Maybe in winter, maybe in summer. So he'll keep more stock at that time, and he's sure that all these chemists are going to buy his product because it's understood. And a lot of businesses, wholesale businesses, have been there before that, and it's relatively easier to understand what are the finances required, what is the space required, how many people you will require for this, and probably when are you going to make a profit. Okay, maybe a year, maybe two, something like that. Now the difference in startup is that nothing is sure in a startup. So in a startup, you try to seek and develop. For example, let's take this bottle over here. I have this bottle here, and this company has bought this bottle and they sell these soft drinks in this bottle. So I decide that, okay, this bottle, this cover is not that good. I can make a better bottle which is cheaper and which is more hygienic, where there's less plastic in this. But this has not been done before. So what I have to do is that I have to develop a prototype first of whatever bottle I intend to come out with. A prototype, how will the bottle be? And I have to take a few samples and go to the manufacturers of this soft drink company. And I have to tell them, I'm giving you this bottle, which is much more economical, which has less plastic, it's good for the environment, and would you like to buy? So you give them a few samples, they tell you, okay, we like this, maybe we could try to place a small order. So there, what you have done is you have taken initial model, you have developed a prototype for it, and you have validated that this product can be sold. All right. And now we also come to, is it scalable? As in, will only one person buy it? So you have an idea, if one person buys this, he sees value in it, maybe a lot of people can buy it. So you can go at all the manufacturers, or I mean, all the soft drink producers and tell them the same thing. I have a wonderful bottle, it's cheaper, it's economically viable. Would you like to buy it? And they all show interest in it. So here you have not only developed the product, but you have validated your business model, that how you're going to go about it, and that it is sellable. You can make money out of this. All right. So this is the most important thing in a startup, is that you have to validate whatever you come up with. Or if you develop maybe not only a prototype, if you mass manufacture anything. If I take this bottle, I feel, oh, a lot of people are going to buy this bottle, and I have not even asked anybody, and I manufacture some 50 lakh pieces of this. And after that, I go and ask the soft drink manufacturer, would you like to buy this? They said, no, we don't want to buy it. Our old supplier of bottles has offered us a better price now, so we don't want to buy it. So you have not validated your product, and you're going to be left with about 50 lakh of this empty bottles. So always, when you come up with something new, validate it with a small circle and find out if it's sellable or not. Okay. So that's the primary difference between businesses, regular businesses like a wholesale shop or whatever, and a startup. And while entrepreneurship refers to all businesses, including self-employed businesses and even some partnership businesses. Startups ideally have to be registered, like they have to be, for example, a limited liability partnership company, or they have to be a private limited company, or a one person company. Okay. And one other difference between startups and other regular companies is that with startups nothing is sure. Okay, with business, on the whole, nothing is sure, but it's much more multiplied in case it is a startup, because you have no idea, like you have no predecessors from which to judge. By will this be successful? Will not? What is the kind of capital I need, and what are the kind of employees that I need, right? So there's high percentage of uncertainty in startups. Rates of failure also are very high, but a very small percentage of startups go on to become very big companies, very successful companies, and make a lot of money, not only for the founders, but for the investors. And they bring something of value to the society, because at the core of a startup, you're doing something that has not been done before. And you're bringing value not to only yourself and the investors, but value to society. Okay. So that's the reason you see huge companies like right now, if you see Google and Apple and Ola cabs here in India. So they all started as a small startup, but down the line now you see that they are a huge multi-billion dollar companies. So that's the difference between startup. So when you intend to do a startup, you should know what are some key features of a startup. All right. So a key feature of a startup would be that you should have a unique product or a service that you're offering, and sorry, a very innovative product, very innovative service that differentiates itself from what is there in the market. So if you consider product, I told you, you developed a new kind of bottle, something that is better than the existing bottles, or you develop a service. If you give an example of a service, something like India Mart. Here in India, we have something India Mart. So what India Mart did was it went to all these people who were small businesses, small time entrepreneurs, and it gave them opportunity to get exposure overseas. Like they said, like a small guy was selling some jewelry, like Indian made jewelry, and he said, and India Mart went and said, we will put up a website for you. We will give you exposure to people overseas so that you can export your product over there. And this was not there in at this scale before. So this startup did very well. So these guys had a unique service. In the same way, if you consider a unique product, you have Apple come with the the small iPod. Initially, iPod, everybody was using cassettes first, and if you remember, I think this is much before your time, but used to have something called cassettes, and you had a small cassette player, a Walkman, and then you would listen music to that. And if you had to listen to 10 different albums, you had to have 10 different cassettes. So iPod and Apple came up with a small device called uh, they called it an iPod, and they said like you can have 1,000 songs in that one small device, and it went viral because it solved a problem for people. They didn't have to carry 10 cassettes along; they could just have 1,000 songs in their pocket, and that was a unique, innovative product. So this is the primary key feature is innovativeness, uniqueness in a product or service. Second thing differentiating a startup from any other company would be scalability. Now, any business can make a lot of profit, can make a lot of money, even like a wholesale business that I told you can make a lot of money if they choose the right products and things. But they their growth is limited. Maybe if they're servicing Goa, then they will be servicing Goa. If maybe some other state, they would be servicing some state. But that is the amount of growth they have. They can't go usually beyond that, right? But with a startup, the difference is that you have to be able to scale a startup kind of almost exponentially, right? So uh, if I bring out a new product, whatever, maybe some kind of internet website which helps me do something else. Like, for example, if you're a student and you want to study better, you want some particular notes. You normally you would take the notes from your teachers, and then you would study all those things. So now this new service helps you put up all your notes in one tab, and you can just log in, and this maybe a few days before exams you can go through all those notes which are most important. So this kind of service would be able to scale this service not only to Goa, not only to India, but all over the world. And that's the reason why mostly internet-based startups are more profitable, because they have to spend less rather than having a product. If it's just internet-based service, you can sit in your office and you can advertise your product all over the world. So scalability is the number 2 point that we would say are the key features of a startup. Also, a startup has potential for exponential growth. Like, you cannot imagine what would be the growth. Maybe your new startup company today is worth 5 lakh of rupees. The inventory that you have, the staff that you have, it's worth 5 lakh. But in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time, it could be worth $5 billion. So exponential growth possibilities, and this is the reason why many investors, venture capital funds, angel investors, they jump on to funding a startup, because the chances of them getting a return, not only 2 times, not only 5 times, at times even 10 times the returns, is very high in this kind of cases. I mean, if an investor who has a lot of money, he puts his money in maybe a bank, a fixed deposit, maybe he would get 4%, 3%, 5% max. If he puts it in stock market, he would get a better return. Again, in a stock market, the risks also are high. So investors choose to try and invest their money with startups for which they see future growth potential, and higher rate of return. That's why you see a lot of investors in this. So coming to this, let us just see what are the few differences. I've just tabulated this in between startups and other businesses. Now, if you take a startup, you definitely need to have a unique product, unique service, or a innovative bringing. With any other business or with any other SMEs or small or medium enterprises, that is not important. You can just take an existing product and you can resell that. Okay. Now, startups are also very technologically dependent. For example, they need technology. This is apart from the product's technology, but they need uh, other accessory technology for them to work. For example, if you take Ola Cabs, Ola Cabs is an aggregate of cabs, right? So Ola Cabs do not really own any cabs or any taxis of their own. So they go and meet people and they tell them that we will give you a business, and we will take a percentage of the whatever your passenger pays you. But for Ola Cab to run, they need to have that app, right? That application is very important for Ola Cab to run, because suppose at times if you've been traveling in Ola and sometimes you realize that the cab driver says, oh, the network is down. So if the network is down, then usually the business there's a problem with that. So they are hugely dependent on technology. They need that. They need the application to run and to push the business ahead. Now, this is not the case with other businesses. You don't need to have really be technology dependent other than the product that you're selling. For example, if you go to a retail shop, or you go to a mall and some big bazaar and things like a big bazaar is still big, but if you go to your regular small shop, and he might be having the billing machine that you see, it gives you a printout. But what happens if the power goes down or if the network goes down? His work does not stop, right? Then he will take a kacha bill and he will write the same bill. He'll say, Patram light na light gile, and he will write the same thing on a bill and he will give it to you. So other businesses are not so technologically dependent. And as far as financing comes, a startup can be either bootstrapped by the founder. Bootstrap means a founder who puts in his own money, or he borrows money from his family, friends, and his savings. That is what is bootstrap. Or he might take money from a venture capitalist or an angel investor. These are people who primarily invest into startups because they see multiple returns for their money in the future. Now, if you're having a business or SME, you will not have a problem of VCs and things like that, because you can go to a bank and you can get a small loan. You say, I'm putting this kind of a shop and I need a loan, and the bank will say, okay, here's your loan. You bring all your papers and you'll have to pay your loan within 3 years or within 5 years or whatever it is. Okay. Or you can put some of your money, same way in business or SME. Other thing is time to profit. How long does it take to generate profits in startups? Usually very long time, because not only the founders, but also the investors understand that this is a new product. Nobody's really sure how it works. And this can take a really long time to profit. But once it starts generating profits, the profits are usually huge. And in case of businesses, other SMEs, maybe you know how long you'll take to generate a profit. Maybe 2 years, 3 years, or whatever. Okay. Failure rates are very high. Normally in business, if you go to see in business, failure rates are high. So if I start a business, uh, there are high chances that I may have to shut my business in the next 1 to 5 years. And a study shows that almost 30% of any business shut down in the first 3 years. Now with startups, that number goes very, very high. It says that almost more than 90% of startups are going to shut down within the first 3 years. So it is, that's how it is. You have to have a good team. If you're having a startup, you have to have a good team and management. You have all those things into place, like who is going to take care of the technology part. You have to have a CTO who is going to do that, who is going to take care of the day-to-day activities, maybe, or whatever. CEO is going to do that, and you have to have HR in place. And all these things are important if you want to build you want to take your startup to the next level, as in it becomes a big, huge company. All these things are not required with smaller businesses. And at times, yes, they do have some management structures in place, but it is not so important. Then next we go to something called an exit strategy. Now I have come up with a startup, and my friend has started another business, a wholesale business, just for an example. So exit strategy is that suppose we want to sell our startup, or I want to move to something else. How can we do that? So in case of startup, what will happen is that you will either go in for an IPO, like you put it up on the stock market and put an initial public offering, and that would be one way to go ahead. Other thing would be, if another bigger company sees you as valuable, then they might buy you off. So that is another exit strategy. Or maybe you go for a higher round of funding. You ask people, okay, we are going to finish all the money that investors have given us. We need some more money. So you will sell some shares to the next investor, and he will give you some more money to go ahead. Now, exit strategy in your business or SME will be very much different. If you have been running your business on your own, you would say, oh, okay, I want to take some rest. And what can I do? So you say, let me make this into a family business. So you'll bring your wife, you'll bring your maybe your brother, you'll bring your parents, or you'll bring some other family member and say, okay, this is, you have to do all this, and we will share the profits. So you turn it into a family business, or you sell it off. If somebody wants to buy your business, you sell it off. That is one way of doing it, right? Uh, any questions? Let me know if something comes. Right. So factors most important to a startup success. So most important factors to start with: having a great idea or improving on somebody's idea. So to take an example, if a few of y'all remember, maybe y'all are too young to remember, that the days of Yahoo and AOL and all those other search engines. Google was not the first search engine, right? Uh, Yahoo was already doing it before them, and there were many few. But what would happen is that if I wanted to search something, I had to go to yahoo.com, Yahoo's site, and Yahoo had everything on its front page. It had not only the search engine bar was somewhere, at one corner, and then some news was there, and something was there, and something. Everything under the sun was on their front page. So once I go there, I would usually forget what I had come here to search, and I would do something else. So the guys at Google realized that, let us strip down the search engine and let us put it just as a search engine. So somebody came and told me, Google, if you want to search something, go to Google. So I typed google.com, and there's nothing, it's a blank page except for a search bar in the center. I mean, this is really funny, but then you realize that you have nothing else to do. So let me as well search for the thing that I came to search. And right, we did it. And everybody started searching. Just because Google took the search bar and put it on a blank page. So that was Google, the guys at Google, taking an existing product and changing it to suit the market, and everybody knows where is Google now. So have an innovative idea, or improve on an existing idea. The other thing is, have a good plan, right? And have an evolving plan in your business. If you're a startup, if you decide, today I will do for this first 1 month, this is going to how it's going to be. Your business plan cannot be the same. The next following month, something changes. The plan also has to change. So it has to be an evolving business plan. As the days pass, you keep on making changes in that. The execution, very important. Just having a great idea, I suddenly decide, wow, I have a great idea, as I told you, for this bottle, a new kind of bottle. By the way, I'm not endorsing this product or anything like that. So I have a great bottle, and I just sit in my home and I just call my friends, guys, I have a great idea. What will happen? It will be what it is. It will just remain an idea because you have not executed it. Having a great idea is nothing without the execution. So I have to go and talk to people, I have to show people, and that is how you execute your idea. Just to give an example, the Ola cab founders, uh, uh, initially, Bhavish Agarwal, initially he was uh, not sure of how to go about this. And I guess Ola was initially a some, I'm not sure, but I think it was some travel company or something like that. And his parents said, "What, you're going to be a travel agent now?" And he decided, "I'm going to make something out of this." So he decided, he, what if there are tons of there were like black and yellow taxis at that time. If I go and contact these guys and tell them, "Okay, Baba, I'm going to give you business, and I'm going to charge you a 15% commission or 10% commission. Would you be interested?" So they spoke to a lot of taxi drivers, and nobody was interested much. But then they found a couple of them. They got hold of them, and that's how they started, right? So initially, you are not going to get hundreds and thousands of users. You have to have 2 or 3 or 4 users, but who stick to your product, who like your product. And they're also kind of your initial users are going to actually kind of test your product. So you know if you have to go ahead with this, or if this is going to be a bust product and you just have to move out of it. So execution is very important, much more than as important as the idea. Your team is very important. Imagine if Steve Jobs had come and say, "I'm going to make Apple, and I'm going to be the only person who is going to do it. I'm going to do everything, the technology, I'm going to do the marketing." Apple would be, the worth of Apple would be just the worth of Apple fruit. It's only because he had Steve Wozniak, the guy who used to do the coding, and he was the tech brain behind it. And Steve Jobs then went and brought a marketing a guy called Peter Scully from Pepsi Cola. Uh, if you've seen the movie, this is actually quite funny. Peter Scully says, "I don't know Apple," and he was earning a lot of money for Pepsi Cola. Why should I come there? And Steve Jobs just tells him that, "Do you want to sell sugared water all your life?" And he's like, "Maybe I will try something else." And it's because of the team that Apple is where it is today. Yeah. So capital raising is also very important. A startup with no money is going to go nowhere. So you have to find a way to pitch your startup to VCs, or pitch your startup to some angel investors, or pitch your startup to your parents if they're going to give you money, for God's sake. Whatever, wherever you can get the money from. Marketing is also as important as all the other things. If you're not going to market your product, nobody is going to know about you. A few of y'all must be using this app called Truecaller. And what Truecaller does is that the person who's calling you, maybe my cousin has saved my name as something else, like whatever, uh, or maybe if you have a pet name, you have a pet name called Shanu or something. Shanu. So your cousin calls you Shanu, and she has fed her name as Shanu in her phone. Now, when I, who is your friend, calls you, sometimes it would show that I have called XYZ, and down in smaller letters, it would be like Shanu. So when I meet you, I would say, "Are, I know your name, your pet name is Shanu." And you say, "How did you know?" Then I would say, "See, through caller, I downloaded this app and I got all this information." Then you say, "Wow!" Like, then you would install Truecaller and you would tell your friend, and this is how Truecaller went viral, right? So there was some kind of they had this marketing where the user would gloat. I know what you're called. And the next thing is various barriers to entry. If you're starting a business, if you're starting a startup, why can't another person do a similar kind of startup? You have to do something to prevent him from maybe stealing your startup. So one way to go about it is have good patents. Patents is that, again, coming to this bottle, I made this bottle, and if I don't do anything to safeguard this bottle, my friend or somebody, my neighbor, might come in. Who I've shown this to my neighbor, and he'll say, "Oh, this is good bottle." Before him, I will also try to copy and do it. So my idea will be stolen, and I will be left with nothing. So when I kind of come out with a new kind of bottle, I have to patent it and secure the rights to that bottle. I have to take some trademarks. Then I have to get strategic alliances. For example, go and meet people meet distributors. They say, "I have this new bottle, and do you agree that you will partner only with me to distribute this bottle?" So these are kind of strategic alliances. And patents are very important when you come up with a new product. So what patents basically does is that it protects you, it protects your design, it protects the way your design flows, and it gives you about a 20-year window protection for your window. And I would suggest is that all of y'all, if you'll come up with a problem, suppose the best products or the best startups today are not doing really fantastic things. They take small problems that they see and they work on that. So you can find maybe whatever, like you have a table which keeps on rocking on one side, and you find some kind of device that you put below, and the table can be completely steady and things like that. If you come up with the design, if you come up with a drawing or whatever it is, go and patent. You don't, there are two kinds of patents. One is a provisional patent, and one is your the final patent. The final patent, the patent costs about 5,000 or something, but a provisional patent is cheap. It's about 1,000 or 1,500. What a provisional patent lets you do is your initial idea. You can sketch the sketches of your initial idea, what you would do, because even you're not sure. Maybe your idea might change in a month or two. So you can take your initial idea and you can file a provisional patent, and it gives you 1 year's time wherein you can mm, like smoothen out all the problems and give a final design, whatever drawing or whatever. So very important, filing provisional patents, and from the money point of view, it's 1,500. It's just a small amount for getting good benefits. Uh, you don't have to go to a this advocate. You can do it on your own, right? So more or less, there's a question. Why is the rate of failure so high for startups? Because startups are doing something uh, that are not. There's a question of why is rate of failure high for startups? First of all, because startups are doing something that have usually not been done before. The founders don't know if it will be a success, if it will be not. Okay, this question has brought one observation is that nowadays every people are calling everything a startup. But any business that you start as you begin is a startup. But any business is not a startup. Startup, as I said, is that many factors. It has not been validated before. You are not sure of all those things. So there are a lot of improbabilities in a startup, which the founder knows about them, which the investors know about them, but they go ahead with the project thinking that the returns will be huge if it succeeds, right? It will be 10-fold, 20-fold returns. So those are some of the factors that startups are usually known to fail a lot. By by core principle, it's called a startup because it's not been similar things have not been done before. So you have to take that into consideration when you start up. Is that you will probably fail if you begin with that idea. Even if it fails, you can understand and you can go to the next big thing that you plan. Okay, why are startups important? Startups important because as of now we have just about the workforce, as far as India is concerned, is less than 15% of workforce is working for the government and working for the organized sector. Organized sector is like people that are having more than huge companies, or maybe a college. Like your college is an organized sector, right? There are a lot of people here. Now, an unorganized sector could be a smaller business, but they have 10 or less people working for them. Okay. So the chances of you today, once you pass out, getting a government job is very small. Uh, so the best thing would be to go out and start some business wherein you would not only benefit yourself, but you would bring up employment for a lot of other people. Along with that, the chances of wealth creation and financial stability is much better in a business, not only a startup, I would say in business in general, because if you're working for somebody, you know that at the end of the month, this is going to be your salary. And maybe in 5 years' time, it'll increase, but the increase will not be very big. It'll be a small increase. A startup can also will contribute to a national GDP, increase in GDP, better quality of life, and you can also have social enterprises. If you have a social, like lately there was an enterprise somewhere in Kanpur, if I'm not sure. It was something called Fool as in the flower Fool. And what these guys did is that they went to all the temples and all the after you put flowers, they have got them to then the Budgies would remove all the flowers. Yeah, they would throw all the flowers into the river, and there was a lot of toxic effluents coming out from that. So this guys every day they would go and collect the flowers from the temples, and they would start making agarbattis out of that. So they employed a lot of women, poor women, to do all this kind of things. Now, doing this, what one thing they would do, it is a social enterprise because primarily you're reducing pollution. You're taking an existing product waste that is going out and making something out of it, and it's upliftment of the weaker sections of society, right? So legal structure of startup, to be a startup, to have just any regular business, you can just be a proprietor, sole proprietor. Okay, there are not much compliances for that. But if you want to register as a startup with the government, you need to be either a private limited, register as a private limited, one-person company, or a LLP. So the problems with this is that compliance is you have to file your regular returns and all those things is quite high. So it's regularly generally a good idea if you're just a fresher and you have come up with a new product or come up with a new service. You can just register yourself as a proprietorship firm and then test your product, validate your product. If you see that there are good chances of this going to the next step, then you can register as a private limited company. One, before going into a startup, one thing you have to before the beginning, you have to envision the end. A lot of people don't talk about this, but I feel that psychologically, if you're going to do any startup, psychologically you have to be prepared. You have to prepare not only yourself but your family before the startup journey, and you have to tell them everything because it can be quite difficult. Now, when it comes to startup, the positives are great. Like you have great objectivity. You have to have grit. You have to be tenacity. You have to have tenacity. But the negatives also are failure, depression. Even I think about a year back, we saw the founder of Cafe Coffee Day, right? He suicided, and it was very sad. So imagine it can affect anyone. It can be a small startup, big startup. But if you are ready for this, then you should go ahead. But if you think that it's going to affect you not only financially but psychologically, then maybe not. So I think we are more or less come to show. What are the financing schemes? Okay, the financing schemes, the government, including, has quite some things called Startup India and things like that. But for all these things, you have to be already registered. Like as I said, if you want to go and apply for some scheme, you have to be registered as a LLP. First of all, there's a there's a website or a platform where you can register your company as a startup. But for that, you have to be registered as a LLP or as a private limited company. Then you get some benefits from the government. You get some tax breaks. Along with the tax break, I think there is some kind of funding that you can also get. But you have to be registered. So because of this, as I said before, when you just testing it out, you can just register yourself like a sole proprietorship. You can do it with your local agency or whatever is that. Test your product for about 6 months, 1 year. If you think that it has the potential, then you can register as a LLP and then you can get those tests. Right. So more or less we come to the end of this. The most important stage of any enterprise is the beginning. So same with the startup. If you don't begin, you will never know. So start, fail, and as I said in my first slide, this is, according to me, this is how a startup moves. Small startup. You think about something, you begin your startup, something doesn't work, you reset, you recalibrate, you go back to thinking, you make some changes, you come back, you start. Okay. Thanks, guys. If there are any questions, I'll take them. Thanks.
Yes, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
I'll stop presenting.
You can unmute yourself and ask the questions if you have any. Doctor, where do we register for proprietorship? Which department, government department?
For proprietorship, you don't, I mean, it's just with your local, this, what is that, local panchayat body. Like, for example, you should have something, if you're operating from your home, right? Or if you're operating from a shop, then you have to get something called a shops and establishment license, which in case of your local body, a panchayat will grant it to you. Or maybe if you're in a municipality level, then you have to go to the municipality level. There are some few, it's a very easy process. I think you have to have uh, start also a bank, what is that, uh, a bank account, not a savings account, but a current account. And it's very easy here. So, proprietorship.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any other questions?
Okay, so if we don't have further questions, then I would be proposing the vote of thanks. So, on behalf of Team IIC of DCT's Dhempe College of Arts and Science, Miramar, I thank our resource person, Dr. Ajinkya Naik, for sharing his experiences with us and his expertise and throwing light on certain topics such as differentiating between businesses and startups, validation of products before selling, then how to register a startup. Sir has also spoken about scalability, evolving plans, how to execute properly, how to market, and even patenting. So, sir has, I've just spoken about some of the topics. Sir has really covered a lot about startups. And I also, lastly, thank one and all for making this session successful. And I request you all, our valuable participants, to be with us for the sessions planned by Team IIC in the future. So, thanks one and all, and have a great day. The certificates will be sent to the attendees very soon. And I hope you will be with us for the future sessions. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just check, please.